We're back with our legal expert, Steve Moskowitz, and the lawsuit of the week. We ought to have that as a regular segment.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
Have it sponsored?
Yeah, or frivolous lawsuit of the week.
Even better.
Well, we'd sponsor anything.
Yeah, that's true.
A season ticket holder sued the New Orleans Saints because he's irked by the notion that players protested. And so, he says in his lawsuit, this guy named Lee Dragnet says in his lawsuit, he bought the season tickets for the, quote, entertainment and intellectual enjoyment of himself and his family, and would never have bought the tickets if he had known players were going to protest. And his complaint is that Saints players were kneeling at home games when in fact they didn't. So I'm going to assume, making myself a fool already, that this lawsuit is literally going to be hurled out of court at breakneck speed.
I couldn't have said it better.
Yeah. So my question, though, is, could the Saints, in hopes of deterring other people from bringing equally frivolous lawsuits, go after this guy? And if they could, what would be the grounds of their suit?
Malicious prosecution. Basically what happens is, if you sue somebody and you don't have proper grounds of doing it, first, as you say, you're going to get thrown out of court, and then the punishment is the other side sues you because you've incurred expenses. For example, your attorneys, it may have hurt your reputation. There's a bunch of things, and that's what it's called, malicious prosecution, and I'm sure they're going to do something like that.
What are the chances of it flying in a Louisiana? I mean, I shouldn't ask you if you're an expert on Louisiana courts.
Which I'm not, because I'm not admitted there.
But, you know, how well will that play? I mean, is that an easy case to make? I mean, do you not have to prove malice? Or is just the fact that he's filed the lawsuit and provided false facts as a part of the lawsuit, is that sufficient to get a win?
Malice isn't needed. It's just that you don't have a good reason. For example, if somebody sues me for being too tall, I still have to enter court or hire a lawyer to defend me. I have to go through certain things, incur expenses, and now I've been sued. So the bottom line is there's no law against being too tall. So you throw it out and say, look, you had no reason to sue me. And a major thing when lawsuits start, usually the defendant, one of the first things he says, look, if you don't have a case, I'm going to sue you for malicious prosecution. And the more you prolong this, the more you're going to be paying me. Because if I am representing a defendant, I want that plaintiff to write us a check because he didn't have the right to do it. And this suit is just incredibly ridiculous. You know, a lot of people were upset and had their enjoyment spoiled by the beginning of the 49ers season. I mean, that happens all the time. And the minute you have something like that, well, you know what? I didn't get my money's worth. I didn't like, oh, well, you didn't throw enough touchdowns. You didn't this, you didn't that. No, it's going to be thrown out, as you correctly said.
Now, Stephen, another case, and these cases are coming up all the time now, sexual harassment. The NFL Network suspended 3 people, Marshall Faulk, Keith Evans, and Ike Taylor, pending an investigation. There's a lady, a former employee, that accused them of sexual harassment. They suspended them, said they'll investigate. If someone accuses you of something, in this case, and they're going to investigate, is the mere accusation enough to suspend somebody without any repercussions?
See, here's part of the problem. If they did it or somebody engages in sexual harassment, of course that's reprehensible and they should be punished to the full extent of the law. But the problem is the pendulum always swings too much to one side or the other. Obviously, it appears a lot of women in a variety of cases have been victimized and suffered, and they were afraid to say anything, and they kept their mouths shut, and they suffered. But our American system of jurisprudence says the burden of proof is on the accuser, the presumption is innocent on the defendant unless proven guilty. And here's the problem. People's careers and lives can be ruined over a mere accusation. There's nowhere else in law that someone says, if you're accused of axe murder, you don't go to prison waiting your trial. So the bottom line, that's the problem here. And this could be misused, such a tool. For example, we talk about these athletes, entertainers, businessmen, and if someone wanted to misuse the system and lie, they could say, you know, you did this to me, boom, the guy loses his job. Or the part where somebody says, okay, get your checkbook out, you owe me a lot of money. That's the problem. It's that where's the burden of proof? Basic law is the burden of proof's on the accuser. If you accuse somebody of anything, you have to prove it. And that's the problem here. And people are talking about, oh, well, I believe the accuser. But again, that is not our law. We don't see this anywhere else in law. And what's going to happen is there's always a backlash.
Does it matter, Stephen, at all? Many of these cases, someone's coming up, there's a public one against Dustin Hoffman where they say it's 30 years ago. Is there any statute of limitations? Does the time matter?
Yes and no, because the problem is there's all kinds of statutes, but in the court of public opinion, oh, you've been accused of something 30 years ago, so therefore no more movies for you, get out, no more endorsements, and that's the problem. Because a lot of these cases, yes, statutes have run, but again, you know, the what happened and where's, again, in American law, if you accuse me of something, you have the right to confront your accuser. Oh, wait a minute, where's the evidence? What day was that? What witness? Suppose somebody said, you know, you harassed me on Christmas of 2014. Well, I can prove Christmas of 2014, I was in another country. So that's the whole idea of this, and that's the problem. I don't want to see anybody innocent. And, for example, I'm sure some woman wouldn't want to see her husband lose her job or her father lose her job or anything. There's two sides to this. I don't want to see victims, but I want to see victims on either side. I don't want to see men victims, women victims. And that's the whole idea of our courts and justice. You have to prove things, not just, well, 30 years ago and you ruined somebody's life.
All right. Thank you, Stephen.
Always a pleasure.
Appreciate it. All right, coming up, Kelly's back with us, and RG3's back, too. Or is he? He says he got multiple offers to come back, but it wasn't the right fit. We'll see if